Check 1 2. What up? This is Open Mike Eagle here, coming at y'all with another episode of what had happened was. Hold on, my printer's making some weird noises. Let that happen. But I'm gonna introduce once again our specials. My printer is just going crazy real quick. I'm gonna introduce once again our special season 3 every episode guest, Mr. Dante Ross. How you doing today?
What's up, man? How are you?
I'm chilling, dude. I'm chilling. It's been a minute since we've been able to connect.
Yeah, man.
And in the interim, just being who you are, I figured you'd have a pretty interesting take on this. I was curious if you caught that KRS-One versus Big Daddy Kane versus.
I did. I thought that KRS-One has a better catalog. Big Daddy Kane was a better performer to me.
That's interesting.
I thought that KRS-One, like, he kind of forgot his lyrics sometimes and relied on the crowd. And he has like more kind of crowd-pleasing songs, but Kane's breath control was flawless.
Look, years and years, peep my game while your tears of fear. Beats by Kane.
Kane's breath control is incredible. Like, to be
Dude,
somebody his age doing rhymes where, like, where does he even breathe? In that room and under that amount of pressure to perform, like, I don't know. I thought that was really an insane display of like technique.
I agree. I liked Kane. I think his general presence better, but you just can't fuck with KRS-One. His catalog, right. He has like those kind of super rowdy songs that like involve the crowd a little more than Kane.
Take your 4-5, put it on. Take your M16. Looking for your people when you walk on. Here in America, the mob drops.
Right.
So his catalog, I think, was superior, but I thought that Kane's overall performance was better. Am I wrong?
I think overall performance is right in terms of like skill and technique, but I think KRS-One, his size on stage is really intimidating.
Yo, that's part of it, man. He's so big, and he's jumping up and down. And him and Kid Capri had the good call and response.
Yeah, I agree with that too. So what do you think?
Also, what I like, what I like about Kane, I don't know Kane well, I know him a little bit, but he is really that cool. He's just that.
He seems like it.
He's so cool. It's crazy.
Like it. What do you think about how big Versus has gotten? Like, what do you think that says about like the legacy of hip hop?
Well, I think that we had really fully formed artists that counted for a long period of time, right? These guys they had careers. They might have only had 3 or 4 records that really connected, but that's a 5+ year arc. So that stuff resonates, and those songs still get played in the 90s set everywhere. Where, nowadays we don't have guys who make lasting records, timeless records. You have records of the moment. Like, no one's going back to listen to, Mumbleface fucking X, Y, and Z in 10 years. But people go back and listen to Kane and Rakim and KRS-One and Cypress Hill, or even like, whoever it is, Busta Rhymes. And I think that says a lot about the quality of music. The music resonates for a much longer period of time.
And one thing I really appreciated about it too was just that it's a new way to mine the value that's still there, like the value in the music and like what the music means to people is fully on display. Right.
And the music is embedded in the culture of people our age now. And I also thought that when you have a battle like this, like no one really wins, we win. The culture wins. There's not really a clear-cut winner. I think some of that's subjective, and I like to think they both win.
I agree, and I also think that the fact that they don't try to make a clear winner is it's a genius thing, because then we can just talk about it for weeks. And I think that's really,
Versus
really smart.
I want to do a punk rock versus. I keep wanting to get Black Flag versus the Bad Brains.
That's what's up. See, it's a beautiful thing. And that kind of points back to, where we started talking was back in your punk days. And, we started with you in the music scene in New York, covered you working with Rush and early Def Jam, and went through Tommy Boy. And then just about everything else we've covered so far has been you with Elektra. But with the project and the era that we're talking about here today, this is when you were leaving Elektra, or you had just left?
So to be chronologically correct, I left Elektra to do my own label deal at Def Jam. It was not successful. And then I basically I kind of, I don't want to say went on boycott, but I kind of just was like, I'm not coming to work. Like I got a check coming in. They got to pay me for a couple of years. Fuck this bullshit. And I kept it moving, and I stumbled upon making a record with my friend Everlast.
Before we get to that, just to kind of set the table for people in terms of what was going on with you, like just so we can state it clearly, what was the reason you felt like it was time to move on from Elektra?
So Sylvia Rowan took over, and she didn't care for me, and I was subjected to an environment that felt hostile to me. I didn't feel comfortable. She was reaching out to my artist without me being involved, not keeping me in the loop purposefully. And I had heard on the street that she was probably going to fire me when my contract was up. And this is no knock on Sylvia. Look, man, you get a new boss, they don't like the old guy, right? And I don't think she was ever a fan of me for whatever reason. My Pete Rock record came up short. My Pooh Bar record was way over budget. And she was really blaming me for it. And it was Pooh Bar's fault. I'm not Pooh Bar. I can't make him show up. But that was part of it. My second Pete Rock record didn't have a hit single. So she had me on the ropes. I had Old Dirty Bastard and I had Buster in my back pocket. And when Old Dirty Bastard hit, I went and took a job at Def Jam because they knew I was unhappy. And they offered me money. I think the culmination was the third Brand Nubian record tanking. And I was like 0 for 3 on her watch. She wasn't feeling me.
That third Brand Nubian record being, is that Everything Is Everything?
Yeah, which was a misguided record.
Definitely a little mixed direction on that one for sure.
Yeah, it was misguided. And I kind of didn't stop them, but there was no stopping those guys. Let's be real.
Word.
Like you're not gonna like as an A&R guy, you don't have that power. And I let them shoot themselves in the foot. I knew it wasn't a great record. I got the first single literally on my own, added to Hot 97, and she pulled the plug on the record, and she wasn't feeling me. So. It was time for me to make a move, so I made a move.
Word.
If I should have hung in there until she fired me, because I would have got the credit for Buster, who I was in the middle doing, and Old Dirty Bastard, but fuck it, I'm who I am.
Before we completely get out of the Elektra era, we covered, a lot of big artists in your time there. There's a few rappers that were signed to Elektra, and I'm just curious about, like, a role.
But wait, I have to say one thing for Sylvia Rowan.
For sure.
After I left, she sent me Old Dirty Bastard royalty and a Busta Rhymes royalty. And I called her up when I got the Old Dirty Bastard one. It was for a significant amount of money. I said, thank you. This might be a mistake because I don't work there anymore. She said, baby, you earned this. Enjoy.
That's dope.
And then she sent me a Busta one.
That's super dope.
I can't, for any of my misgivings about working for her, she definitely did me a solid and threw me a couple of bones. And look, man, that's a classy act. And I respect her. I just didn't like working for her, but I respect her emphatically. And she also has an A&R person or as a label head. So she's a different kind of person to me. I care about the culture and the music with some form of integrity. She hears the hits. I'm not driven by the radio hit the way she was. And that's to her credit and to my fault.
Got you. So you make your peace with Elektra, and you're stepping out into a role at Def Jam where you have your own imprint. What was the what were you in your mind, like mentally? What were you getting ready to do? Like, what did you want to do with that new imprint?
So I signed Trigger the Gambler. He was the first act I signed.
I got the mad act, that's your bad act, it's like that act. I'm the broken language event on your dread acts. Tape CDs or wet acts, that's a fat act. You're running hot out, I slip up out of the slide out.
It was like a competitive situation. And look, the record wasn't up to snuff. Smooth the Hustler didn't go the distance, and I got caught holding the bag. I signed DV Alias Christ. We had a minor hit with My Crew Can't Go For That from Nutty Professor soundtrack.
Yeah.
My crew can't go for that, no, no can do. Now my crew can't go for that, can't go for that, can't go for that, no can do.
And I had no success other than that. I worked on the Nutty Professor soundtrack. For reasons I will fully own, I never really fit in at Def Jam. It wasn't my place to be. Certain people who worked there did not like my style, and I knew it wasn't working out. So I just was like, fuck it, I ain't even going to work. They got to pay me later.
So who's running Def Jam then? Because I know you had worked around there in the beginning.
Leor Cohen and Julie Greenwald. Julie Greenwald and Leor Cohen. And Chris Lighty was in there. He had Violator, and I did the deal to go over there with Chris. And I love Chris, but it just wasn't working out. I couldn't get along with Leor at that point. We've since mended fences. But Julie Greenwald, she's had the, Julie Greenwald, she's kind of fired me twice in my life or handed me my walking papers twice. So, and she's a killer at what she does. But, I don't think she ever particularly cared for me. And it just didn't work out for me. It wasn't my thing. It wasn't. I walked in there, I think I had my chest puffed out too far. And look, they weren't psyched on me. Leor was, but it went bad really quick. I think it went bad because I managed to .X and they wanted me to sign him, and I signed him aloud because they wanted to have all my eggs in one basket. After that, it kind of went sour.
Mm-hmm. So that's the .X, a solo album, the Wild Cowboys, when it came out on Loud.
Yeah, and that wasn't a hit record either. So you could say I was cold, and it was one of the first times in my whole life I was cold. I've since been cold a few times.
And that was a great album, though. That Wild Cowboys was a great album.
I liked it. I cared for it. Some people liked it, some didn't. But like I said, I was cold for the first time in my life. I was on a losing streak. And, fuck, man, it was bugged out. A lot of doors closed for me. People who were my peoples weren't getting back to me on the phone. And I've since come to know that's just the way this shit works. I don't think I knew it till then.
So that's how things were, in that moment business-wise. But I'm curious how things were for you personally, leaving Elektra and stepping into this new role at Def Jam. Like, what was life like for you?
I was going out with the wrong woman. I'd been with this one lady for a long time, and I was in my early 30s, late 20s, and I was antsy. I wanted to, I let my physical wants overtake common sense, and I ended up with the wrong chick. Between that and the cold streak I was on, life was a little hectic, and it was a little crazy. And at that point in my life, I had a problem with my hands, and that problem with my hands was arising a lot. And back then, I was very quick to punch someone in their mouth. I just was acting up a lot, and I was I was pissed off, and I wasn't at my best. I was definitely not on my best behavior.
So in this kind of period where things are getting a little more difficult, and you have the job at Def Jam, you decide to make a very unique kind of album, and that's the one we're here to talk about today with Everlast, which is Whitey Ford Sings the Blues.
Well, there's a prelude to it. In times of uncertainty, creativity always solves my problems. I'm not the kind of guy who could go and invest his money in something and watch the dividends take place. I always kind of go back to my core creative being to fix my problems. And I started making a lot of music, and I started looking at music outside of what I was doing, mostly because I didn't necessarily like the music that was hitting then. I wasn't a shiny suit guy. I didn't like the rap karaoke. I've come to appreciate it now.
So we're talking about like 96, 97, that kind of era?
Exactly, like 97. It was far away from what inspired me to love and become involved in hip hop. So I started listening to other music, and that other music, things like Massive Attack and Portishead and Tricky, go back, and Beastie Boys, who were my friends, and a lot of alternative kind of stuff that was happening at that point, and went back to kind of the roots of what I really liked, whether it was Britpop like Oasis or even Pavement or all this other stuff that was happening musically that was intriguing to me. And I started to look beyond the genre of just hip hop. And I started, Rage Against the Machine was a big component in that too, because they mixed a lot of things together that I liked. And it was heavy. And I started saying to myself, there's this other thing that's happening, and all these cool rock bands are rapping, whether it's Rage or Beck, who are very different, or even Cake or Massive Attack or Portishead using hip hop elements, or Oasis, who had nothing to do with hip hop, but just made really good music to me. I was like, this shit is interesting. And I kind of turned away from what was happening in hip hop, and I keyed into some other kind of music. And the inverse was I was making a lot of beats, but I was making different kinds of beats. And I worked with this one band And we almost got him a deal. They fucked it all up. The band, it all went shitty at the end. But the demo was really good. And I met with every head of every label. They broke up, and then I did a record with the kid later. But it said to me, I'm onto something. I'm figuring this out. And I experimented with kind of sounds and things I had never done before. It said to me, there's something there. So me and Everlast had always talked about working together. I think he looked at me as like maybe the next guy after Muggs, because that relationship had fallen apart. And I kind of was always in that realm anyway. I knew all those guys. And he suggested, I saw him in New York. He said, we should work on some shit sometime. I said, that'd be dope. And I went to LA a few months later and I had a beat taped with me and I gave it to him. And he picked the beat right away. Unfortunately, Casual ended up grabbing the beat and I did it for Casual. But that said, I had a couple of beats on there he liked. He was like, yo, I'm gonna come to New York. Let's work on some shit. He was on Tommy Boy. He had broke up House of Pain. And he came to New York and we worked on some joints, but they were like rap joints. One of them was Dollar Bill that ended up on the album exactly the same.
Dollar bills, Deutsch, marks, francs, yens, and pounds. I rock the chopped up sounds from Devonshire Downs out to Fordham Road. Up top in the boogie, I be loyal to my peeps like Pooh the Stud Doogie. Never
One of them was Ends, which was a rap song that my boy had done.
ends. Some people will rob their mother for the ends. Rats snitch on one another for the ends.
My man Sibba did. And we worked on another one. I think we worked on The Letter.
Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. All the broken hearts and the unpaid dues. What you did to me, what I did to you. I ain't mad at you, boo. So what we gonna do?
We were working on some other things. We had some things in the air with beats and stuff he had picked. And we're talking about doing that Ramal Z joint, the bebop and some things. And he was around me. I was making beats a lot. Me and John Gamble we were in the basement making shit. Like I was prolific. I made a lot of beats in that time period. I would make 2-3 beats a day, like 2 beats a day, pretty much every day, like 4 days a week. Just making shit. I liked what I was doing. So he took the demos to Tommy Boy and they were like cool. And we're still working. My man Albie was the A&R guy. And I had an acoustic guitar in the studio. It was really John's. He had I think he had a hummingbird. And I don't really play guitar. I can play a little bit. I can play some keyboards and some drums, but mostly I played a sampler, to be honest. And I'm a one finger, 2-finger genius on the keyboard. So Eric was like, hey, can I take that home and rock with him?
And Eric is Everlast, just for people that don't know.
Everlast. And I knew he played guitar. You know, he had the guitar in the house in LA and he would always play like Soundgarden songs and all the shit. That's another thing I was into. I was like listening to Soundgarden and all this other shit. A little after the fact, but I missed Soundgarden with the first grunge thing. And then I really tuned into it and I loved them and a bunch of other shit. He was turning me on to some rock shit I kind of just missed. He took it home, the guitar, and so like I was like going through with this girl. So of course, at that point in my life when I'm going through with the woman, the cure for that is to go and mess with 6 other women you shouldn't mess with. I was a good-looking guy back then. I had the savoir-faire, so to speak. I always had a lot of game, so I was messing with like a different chick, like every he was like, "How do you do it?" I'm like, "Leave me alone." So he was. Oh, I forgot to say this. So Everlast, who had this big house in the hills, was living on my shitty couch that like Old Dirty Bastard and 18 other rappers had slept on over the years that smelled like old rappers and bong juice.
Yikes.
But he didn't care because he's a very humble person. He just wanted to make music. His vibe was actually amazing. Mine wasn't. And I had a little studio in the back of my house too with the 1200 set up and records and shit. I always remember this like clear as bell, and so does he. Because my preference, I'm a multicultural person. I haven't necessarily had a lot of women who look like me as my significant others or people I dated, right? So I'm eclectic. But I came home and I was hanging out with this girl named Shannon, and she's an Irish girl. She had blue eyes and black hair and very white skin. She's very pretty, but not the typical physical woman I would mess with. So I walked in the house, and I never forget this. Eric was sitting there with the guitar in his lap and like a pair of boxers, I think, or something. And he looked at me and he goes, home team? And I said, home team. And he gave me the pound. He went like this. It's like, yeah. I was like, okay, weirdo. So
Wow.
I go in my bedroom. I had a big apartment. It was like a pretty big apartment. 2-bedroom and a big living room. It was like a duplex thing. I went in the bedroom and I was hanging out with homegirl, whatever, this, that, and the other end. And I heard, I got up to go to the bathroom and I heard Eric playing the song. And it was really fucking cool. And I was like, what? I was in my boxers. I was like, what the fuck is that? So you got two guys who have basically failed out of the hip hop world in their boxers in my living room. And he's got a guitar on and I got a girl in the bedroom. And he's playing the song. And I'm like, what the fuck is that? He's like, oh, this little thing. I got like, it's a song. And he's like, he starts singing it to me. And I'm like, yo, that shit's crazy. Play that again. And he played it again. I was like, that shit is crazy. That's what we need to do. And he's like, I don't know, man. Once we do that, we can't go back. And I was like, fuck going back. That shit's the shit. And the song was What It's Like. And
Had
it was
to be what it's like.
It was basically exactly how it is. No drums, same everything. Just him and acoustic guitar, same intro. And the first 4 bars of that catches you. It's an earworm, man. The way it starts, it's beautiful. So, and look, I love Neil Young and I love Van Morrison, Bob Dylan, and it hit me the way that shit hit me. This other cat, Terry Callier, kind of does stuff like that, and it just hit me the way this great singer-songwriter shit I like hit me. And, that's like my mom's music. I grew up on that, whether it's Bill Withers, whatever it is in that idiom I love. And I thought his vocal was tremendous. So I was like, yeah, all right. So I went back in the bedroom and I hung out with homegirl, whatever. And she, the next day we went to the studio and I was like, bring the guitar to the studio. He's like, wow, I said, bring it to the studio. So he brought the studio and I was like, yo, man, play him that shit. And to John, because John Gamble, he wasn't really like an A&R cat. He was like more of a technical cat. But he had said to me when I was hanging out with Everlast, because I had gone to LA and me and Eric were hanging out, and he said, if Everlast ever wanted to do rock rap stuff, like a rage type thing, he'd be really fucking good at it. I was like, why do you say that? He's like, well, you tell me he can play guitar a little bit. And he's like, and he raps kind of like that style. Like he could probably kill that shit. And I was like, that's an interesting idea. So I convinced Eric to play the song for John, and John was like, that shit's dope. And I was like, yo, you need to do that. He's like, I don't know if I'm ready to do that. I was like, okay. And we were working on some rap shit. But we went home, he brought the guitar home again, and he was playing guitar, and he had another song that became 7 years. And I was like, yo, man, I stayed on him for a couple of days. Yo, we got to do that. We got to do that. We got to do that. And so I went to the studio before he did. We had another guitar there. I don't think he brought the same guitar. We had a couple of guitars on there because John played guitar. I was like, yo, play that shit again. But I got there earlier and I had chopped up a drum loop, I'll leave nameless, that became the drums for that song. I chopped it up and I kind of estimated the tempo. And I was like, yo, check this out. Yo, play it to this. And I slowed it down a little bit more and it was that drum beat and he played the song and we all knew we had something. That shit was magical. We were like, this shit is that shit. Like a couple times in my life I've been in the studio and heard some shit that was magic. That was one of the times. That shit was magic. Like when I first heard Brooklyn Zoo, it was magic. We weren't in the studio though. But like when Grand Poobah did the raps for Step to the Rear, that shit was magic. When they made All for One in the studio, it was magic. Right? A few times I've been around the magic. This shit was magic. But it was magic in a world I wasn't accustomed to being in.
Exactly.
Right? That's not the world I work in. So, but look, man, I'm an eclectic dude. I know a lot about music. And I'd done these demos with these kids before that were not like Whitey Ford Sings the Blues, but they weren't unlike Whitey Ford Sings the Blues. They were more trip-hop leaning rock rap, a little more sardonic. And look, and those demos got to everyone. Like I met with the head of Elektra, the head Josh Deutsch. I met with Michael Goldstein who ran DreamWorks. So I knew something about tapping into that world. I had an inclination and a modicum of attention for it. So I was like, this is incredible. So I used some of the lessons I had taught myself on that, me and John, and I can't underestimate John Gamble, rest in peace, because he was so critical to the record. Because there are things I don't know how to do, and I had the vision for them, but he could help me and Everlast execute them. He could figure out the way to do it, the technical side, and more than that, just a sonic side. He had a roadmap that I didn't possess. So we started doing this record, and Eric had a second song, and it was 7 years. And I liked it, but the way he played it first wasn't exactly how I heard it. I heard it more like, oh, this could be like a bouncy New Orleans type thing. And he was like, oh, that's an interesting idea. And I chopped up a famous drum loop, and we used it as a click track, and he put it together. I had my man come and play piano on it. And I got a trumpet player. My man, Dan Doolin, came, and he played trumpet on it a little bit. And I was like, this shit's dope.
Got no more tears in me left to flow. When I did my baby wrong, and she left me lonely for so long.
And I chopped up another famous break in the break and added some shit in. It's a lot like the finished demo. So he took those songs, The Letter and Dollar Bill to Tommy Boy.
So just he had ends. What it's like?
No ends.
No
He had
ends. Not no
it's a
ends.
rap. He had ends as a rap song.
Okay, different ends.
It's a
Not the one
rap
that
song.
ended up being.
No, it sounded
Okay.
like One Love by Nas. It was that
Okay.
style beat. We had that. We had another song we shelved. We had The Letter, which we kept, and that demo is the one on the album is the demo from my basement studio.
Wow.
7 years. And What It's Like in Dollar Bill. I think he went with those 4 songs.
And
Those
took
are the
him
ones
into
he
Tommy
picked.
Boy.
Yeah, he took him in there. And I got the call from Monica Lynch and my friend Albie. And Monica Lynch said, this is incredible. And like, I love Monica. She's one of my mentors. And she really knows music. And for her to tell me that, I was like, wow. She's like, look, we're going to greenlight you to do the rest of the album. You guys should figure out how you want to do it. But this right here, these songs all work together. And this song, What It's Like in the song 7 years, this is the strong part of the record. This is it. Like, this is where it's at. And I already knew that. Because, look, Everlast's a good rapper, but what we were doing was to me groundbreaking. So, at least for me, and look, we're not the first people to do it. And I always said Beck was a huge influence. I've seen the Dust Brothers do that. I always looked up to them. I always said Everlast was Beck with a shitty attitude. I was like, Everlast is Beck with a gold chain who will kick
Dark
your ass.
Beck.
Right, exactly. He's the Beck you don't want to talk funny style to. And Everlast and me, like, sometimes you know people for a long time, but you spend this time together where you become so in tune with each other. We're like brothers to this day. I mean, I love him. He's one of my best friends. And we had this symbiotic musical relationship where we could just, without saying it, know it, And he very rarely doubted me, and I very rarely did shit he didn't like. And vice versa. He rarely came to me with a song I didn't like. I really didn't have to fix the songs up a lot. The basis of the song was his. Therefore, he was the songwriter. That's why, like in most rap records, the producer's half the songwriter. On these records, I wasn't necessarily the songwriter because he bought me good songs, man. I didn't have to do that much. I mean, I had to do a lot, but I didn't have to change the song
You had to do a lot of
structure.
production. You didn't have to do a lot of
Right.
songwriting.
Not a lot of arranging either.
Yeah.
I did musical and vocal arranging, but song arranging, his arrangements were tight. He knew how to arrange and write songs. He was a student of great singer-songwriter stuff. It's funny too, because he would tell me that he loved Cat Stevens. I never really loved Cat Stevens. I always felt the more Neil Young vibe of it. But regardless, so we're trudging along. We got the green light to make the record. I come home one night after catching my ex-girlfriend with this dude I knew. And it was a fucking fiasco.
Okay. So you
I
was
took
going through it a little bit.
I took a baseball bat to my closet. Eric didn't do shit. He just heard me destroy my closet. And he was like, what the fuck? I was like, dude, I'm gonna fucking kill this fucking dude. I'm fucking and he's like, you know what, man? Homegirl's putting you through it. And you're not living right. Like, let's go to LA and make the record. I was like, we could do that? He's like, fuck yeah, we could do that. I was like, without even thinking, I was like, I'm in. I was like, let's go. So I had to sell it to John. And we had to figure out, and once again, John becomes so crucial. So John goes to LA and he builds a replica studio. We tell Eric what we need, and he kind of builds a replica studio of our pre-production studio.
Wow.
We had a 16-track 1-inch tape machine that sounded fucking great. He got a couple of ADATs, which we had, which sound like shit. A preamp. He didn't really get a good preamp. We brought ours. So we took all of our samplers, our keyboards, our wacky little keyboard collection, which was pretty cool. And I want to say 14 boxes of records. It might be 11. And I sent them all to LA. Because one thing about the Everlast record, he had the songs, but I made a lot of that shit like right there in the studio, like, oh, this drum loop, and let me chop this up, and I'm gonna add this little fucking crazy dub sample from over here, and I'm gonna take this fucking weird rock psych record and chop this little piece in here, and then and that's kind of how we made the record. So we went to LA, and there was a couple of technical problems. The machine he had was the new version. It wouldn't necessarily read one of our old tapes. We had to do some stuff over. We had to go to big studio and transfer stuff. So that was one technical hindrance. The other was, our studio is built like a studio. Eric's house is not built like a studio. So we had to run like a 40-foot snake into the living room, which had these big high ceilings and rafters. Sounded great, had this natural reverb, but we had to figure out how to do it and do it by remote with no camera. So we're doing it all through the talkback. We can't really see him. And often I would go into the living room with headphones and sit with Eric, and John would talk us through it, and I would kind of coach Eric through it and vice versa. So that's how we did a lot of the vocals, and we just started making records. And, you know, we didn't move that fast. We didn't throw away too many records. And we needed some parts. So in New York, I had a lot of musicians. I had keyboard players. I had my friend who played trumpet. I knew bass players. LA, I didn't have this
the network.
You know, I didn't have the bullpen of musicians. But it's so crazy. I had this is fucked up. Before I went to LA, I had a girl in LA. Does that make sense? So I went to LA, and old girl picked me up at the airport, and she was a really cool girl, Pauline Takahashi, and she drove me to Eric's house. John was already there. We're gonna all live in Eric's house, which is a story I'll get to later. And don't ever live with the artist and the engineer if you don't have to. But we hung out for a couple hours, and then I left with Pauline. I said, look, man, I'm gonna drop my shit off. I went right to the house, and I'll be back here in the morning. And I remember this, Pauline was like, you guys have such amazing chemistry and energy. The record you're about to make is gonna be amazing. And I was like, how do you know that? She's like, I'm telling you, I know that. And she was kind of a hippie. She kind of did know some shit. She was like the perfect woman for me at that time in my life. She was everything I'm not. She was a vegetarian and a hippie and super sweet. And I'm a crabby New Yorker, so who likes to eat cheeseburgers. So we, on paper, we didn't work. She was great, though. Here's the crazy thing. I didn't drive. I'm living in L.A. I don't drive. We have one car. John picks me up almost every day. From Mount Olympus, comes down to Hollywood, picks me up and takes me back. I live right off Melrose, and we started making this record. We go out to a party. It's like an art opening in a bong store gallery called Galaxy Cafe. That was on Melrose, and this band's playing. The band's not that good, but the keyboard player's fucking incredible. And I ask, and my girlfriend said, that's my friend Keith. Like, that's my boy. And I'm like, really? Introduce me. And I walk up to him. Me and Everlast were like, me and John were like, this guy's great. And I'm like, what's your name? I'm making this record. I really would love you to play on it and work on it with me. And like, you're a fantastic musician. And he's like, cool. I was like, the Moog shit you're doing was sick. I need that, and I need this, and I got a Rhodes up in the house, and I got a Wurlitzer and all this shit. He's like, oh, cool, man. I'll come through. And he came through first time to just hang. And he ends up playing on 7 years, recuts the piano parts for me and some Moog shit for me. And I'm like, Eric and him vibe, and I'm like, this is the guy. And I'm like, hey, I need some musicians. I'm looking for a bass player. I need someone who can arrange strings. I need a horn section. And he plugs me into all these fucking great musicians, right? So, I get Norwood from Fishbones playing bass on
That's
shit.
amazing.
Yeah, and Norwood didn't even, I saw him like a year later. I was like, dude, I got a gold record for you. He didn't even know who the fuck I was.
Damn.
And I was like, after but he copped like half the bass lines in one night, like on the record. The other stuff was played by my man Merlot, who ended up like, he worked on all the Dr. Octagon shit. He plays with Jack Johnson now. He's my friend's cousin. He's the only musician I know. He played some shit on it. Norwood, I got this other bass player who played upright, because I used upright on a few songs. because I liked that sound and I never really went back to it, named Giovanni. He was also a string arranger. He arranged the strings on What It's Like for me, helped me arrange them. They were a little off, but we fixed them later on. You know, it was cool. It wasn't fast, but I was near my dad up in the Bay, so I got to go up to San Francisco a lot. I didn't have, my money was fucked up. Everlast money was terrible. John is in, rest in peace. He's a unique and idiosyncratic individual who seemed to enjoy everything that was going around us more than we did. He hooked up with the shorty. He was, you know, we argued a lot because I'm really demanding and he had a lot of stuff he had to do, but we plugged along and, you know, we made a lot of that shit right then and there. Like, you know, we just made that song Tired. Well, I'll get to that, but we made Today.
Yesterday, just a dream I don't remember. Tomorrow, still a hope I've yet to endure.
And a bunch of that shit right then and there. And we had a couple of people around us, and we had this guy named Bronx Style Bob, who was a rapper who made all these alternative records. He had a band called Super 8. He's an old friend of mine, a dear friend of Eric's. He's part of the Rhyme Syndicate. He sings like an angel. He plays guitar. And he was like, he helped me arrange a lot of the vocals on the record. He helped me with the harmonies. He did a lot of them. He was a huge part of the record, which people don't know. He's credited, but he was my ace on it, man. And when we were making it, we did all these background vocals on that song Today. And the ADAT ate the 8 part of the fucking background vocals, 3-part harmony, and the choruses and all this shit. And I literally cried.
Damn.
And Bob put his arm around me and was like, D, I'll come do it again tomorrow. Don't worry, bro. I love you. And I was like, what? He's like, and he took me to the side. He was like, yo, you know, you're working on a special record. Like, and just keep the faith. And I did. So Bob was like my angel and divine styler who did one song on the album. He also said a lot of the same kind of things that Bob had said, but to take it a step further, he's a very philosophical guy. And me and him would talk about metaphysics a lot and the power of faith and his belief in Islam. And it's a lot of theological and metaphysical conversations. And these enlightening conversations awoken a lot of things inside of me, belief, and helped spur a lot of evolution. I started to change as a human being in a way I hadn't before and questioned a lot of my past values and behaviors. And so I'm going through this big transition and I'm going broke at the same time. And Everlast is going broke. He's a guy who lived way over his means like a rapper, and he's going broke. We got this big, beautiful house in the hills, but he can barely make, he's missing mortgage payments. He's fucked up. He's about to go bankrupt. And it's an intense situation. Needless to say, me and him are arguing a bit. I literally I went up to the Bay for a minute to get away from the bullshit. And I came back and I remember Eric was like, I have $8 to last me the rest of my life or some shit. And I was like, oh man, and he's like hiding his car because he's late on the payments. And I'm like, whatever I got, half of it's yours. And you know, look, man, we held each other down and we're making the record and look, I played it for a bunch of people, friends of mine who came through who were in LA, and not one motherfucker ever said something negative. It's the one record other than Brand Nubian where I got nothing but positive response from people I played it for. And that meant a lot to me. You know, my friend Justin Pierce, the actor who took his own life, he was one of the champions of the record. As was Pauline and my friend Julie Z, they had a business together. And man, it was all positives. E Swift as well, who lived up the block from me.
E Swift
and was
from
my hangout
Alcoholics.
partner. Yeah, he does one song on the album, and he was my partner. And that's how I really got to know him and J-Ro. And man, those guys are wonderful people. And I'd hang out at E Swift at his pad. He had the studio up there. To get away from Everlast and them, I would disappear and go to E Swift's house and not let him know and smoke out because I could literally walk to his house. And that was my boy, man. That's, shout out to E Swift. He's a great human being. And he and I don't think I knew it, his Bean offered me some solace to get away from what I was dealing with. So fast forward, we damn near got the record done. He has this I forgot this crazy thing. When we first did the demos, Eric's manager, this guy named Carl Stubner, who was a pretty smart guy. I didn't always get along with him, but he's a smart cat. And Carl managed Mick Fleetwood. And I guess he played the demos for Mick Fleetwood. And Mick Fleetwood called my fucking house one day. And he's like on my phone machine going like, Eric, I don't know what you're doing in New York, but you've got the grease in this one. It's got the magic. Like, I've never heard anything like it before. This stuff is so beautiful. Awesome. Like, and it's Mick Fleetwood. And I'm like, what the fuck? So I'm like, I had all the confirmations, but look, Tommy Boy never sold alternative records.
That was a big question of mine. How could you be confident that they wouldn't fuck this up,
Well, in the midst of it, Monica leaves Tommy Boy. Albie, the A&R guy, gets disposed, and Tom Silverman won't return Eric's phone calls, and Eric needs money, and he's broke. So we're on ice with the label. Our conduit's gone, and Silverman's not returning calls, and Eric's really, really in a bad place. He's smoking a ton of stogies.
How far are y'all into the album?
8th inning. So tracking like bottom of the 8th, close to done. So all the stuff's going on, and I haven't been home literally for 9 months, and I want to go back. So I'm paying rent on my place in New York, and I got a house and a life in New York. I want to go the fuck back. God knows why. I really didn't need to go back, but I was homesick. So I'm like, man, we got to finish this fucking record. I got to get back to New York. I'm out here, and I got shit I got to do. And he's like, we'll finish, and we have a big argument. And I'm like, dude, we got one fucking song to go. It's a rap song. Get your fucking shit in gear. And one thing about Eric, he's intimidating to a lot of people. He does not intimidate me. And I might be one of the few people outside of Muggs he really actually listened to. And he listened to me, I think, specifically during this record because I had the game plan. Right. I saw how to fit the jigsaw puzzle together. And I told him this. I said, don't worry about rap or singer-songwriter. It's all got a hip-hop foundation to it. And I was like, people can't see a picture until it's framed. I see the frame and the picture. And he was like, I see it too. And I was like, I see the frame. We just haven't framed it for the whole world. But this is going to work. Trust me. We got this. So me, him, and John all believe this. And so did his manager, Carl Stubner. I will give him credit for that. So Tommy Boy won't get on the phone, won't cut him a check. We got this one song. I'm on his ass about it. He always ate at the shitty place, Damiano's. I hated the food there. I said to him one day, only an Irishman from LA would eat that bullshit Italian food. I was like, are you fucking kidding me with that? So he ate Damiano's. Oh, so we had this one song, Tired, and he does 2 verses. I want a 3-verse song. And he's like, I ate that food. I think I got food poisoning. I was like, that's what you get for eating that fucking garbage again. I was like, fucking take care of yourself. You look like shit. He's kind of greenish. And I'm like, I'm going home. My girlfriend's in Vegas at fucking the Magic Convention. I got the house to myself. I'm fucking away from you guys and by myself for the first time in fucking 8 months. I'm out. So, or 9 months almost in. And I go home. And before I leave, I was like, John, he doesn't look too good. Make sure he has his door open in his room. He's like, I'm going to take a nap. I'm like, yeah, finish the song tomorrow. Don't fuck up. I was like, you don't look good. I was with him a year earlier or so. And he got really bad food poisoning in New York. He looked that same way. So what I didn't know is Eric was born with a heart condition. He has one valve that doesn't work properly. He didn't know it either. He actually did. He was on Coumadin, but he wasn't taking the right prescription. And it was never a thing. I was never cognizant of his heart condition. He never talked about it. And he went upstairs. I went home. I fell asleep. And my phone, I had left my phone on. And my phone rings in the middle of the night, my cell phone. And I ignore it. And then my house phone rings. And I'm like, well, my cell phone rings again. And I don't like to pick the phone up in the middle of the night because somebody either died or went to jail. Yeah. And I don't want to pay bail, and I don't want to hear someone died. Save it for the morning. So, and that's kind of a tradition of mine. Like, I ain't picking the phone up late at night. But it kept coming. I see it's John's number. I pick up the phone, and I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? It's like 5 a.m. And he's like, Eric had a heart attack. I'm like, what the fuck? He's like, I'm at Cedars-Sinai. He had a heart attack, and they wouldn't let me get in the ambulance because I'm not next of kin. And I'm here. I said, I'll get in a cab. We'll see you in a minute. So I go to Cedars-Sinai, and I get there, and took me maybe 45 minutes, an hour to get there. When I get there, Eric, I'm like, what the fuck's up, Eric? And John is white as a ghost. He said, I think he might die. And I said,
Whoa.
what? He said he just had a heart attack. And he was like, he had another heart attack before he got here. And he went to code red. I'm not sure what's going on, but he's in critical condition. And he may not make it.
So he had two
And I was
heart
like,
attacks.
what the? He had 2 heart attacks. So when he had the second one, he had his aorta, which is the valve, separated from his heart.
Whoa.
So he's going to have double bypass. We have to tell the mother, she's in the valley. We tell his family, Bob, Divine, a couple of people. And we stay in the hospital, and all these people come through, and we kind of hold a vigil for him in the hospital.
Whoa.
And Mr. Cartoon reached out, and Esteban came through, and a bunch of people. And I guess no one knew for 24 hours. But somehow, after 36 hours, everyone knew. And my phone won't stop ringing. And I don't want to talk to anyone. I also had to tell my lady, she's like, where are you? Like, what the fuck? And I was like, fucking, I'm with Eric. He's like in critical condition. He may die. He had a heart attack. She's like, oh my God, I'm coming back from Vegas. So she comes back from Vegas, and we're all in the hospital. And the shit is fucking intense, man. We really don't know if he's going to live or
And
die.
how long have y'all been in there at this point?
So I guess we went home to shower and stuff and eat and to be with Eric's mom because she's fucking in a way, and she's staying with us at the house. And after 24 hours, we left, and we came back the next day. And it's the second day. It's going on 36 hours. And that's when the whole world seemed to find out about it. And so I'm ducking and diving people. And I have to get the message to people, Tommy Boy, and, you know, like people like Dayla and Latifah, and these people are all reaching out because they're on the label with him and his friend, and they know I'm there with him. And you know, the whole world knows. And there's a rumor going around that he was on drugs, and you know, he wasn't. Someone from the hospital who worked there actually said, like, it was a heart attack. There's no substances involved. And sent it up on the internet. It's fucking heavy shit. So Eric's laid up, but he pulls through. And I go to see him a couple of days later, maybe a week later. And I'm there with his mom and his dad, who I didn't really know very well, but I forgot to tell you, we had this big, it was El Nino, and his ceiling got all this water in it. And I saw the ceiling was going to buckle. So I moved all the equipment and taped garbage bags and everything. And his dad came and popped the ceiling that had fixed the leak because he's trying to sell his house. But now he has water damage in the ceiling. But his dad fixed it all. And he did end up selling the house. And that's how I met his dad. So the second time I meet his dad, he's in the hospital, and Eric comes to, and they're trying to tell him how serious it is. And he looked over and he saw me. He said he saw tears coming down my face, and that he knew it was serious. He didn't know what was going on, but he knew it was fucking serious. So we talked to the doctor afterwards, and he's like, was he under immense stress? And I kind of tell him what's going on. And he's like, well, it all makes sense. He wasn't taking care of himself. His Coumadin is misprescribed. He had a super high stress level. His blood pressure is through the roof. And like, look, depression follows after a serious heart attack. And, you know, if you guys can kind of figure out something that can motivate him to get better, if he has a goal worth working towards, like, his recovery may be better. His mental is so important in the mix. So, you know, it's not hard to tell. Like, he had something to look forward to.
Right.
This piece of art he created, right? So me and the mom talk about it, and he's like, you can't rush him. It's going to be a while till he recovers. I kind of determined with his manager and with Eric that we should finish the record regardless, that he's going to get better, and we're going to finish this record, and we should finish it while he's laid up. So I get the green light to go and take the record back to New York and finish it without him. I remember talking to Eric, and he said to me, you know what to do, D. Go finish that motherfucker. So I went to New York. Me and John go back. We fly all our shit back. And we were mixing in New York because we had tried to mix one song with the engineer in LA, and it was shit. So, you know, I had Jamie Staub, who mixed all the Pete Rock stuff. I loved the way his drums sound. So I was like, and he's a white guy who knows rock music. He worked with John Spencer, Blues Explosion, and I really like that record, Acme. So I was like, you know what? I want to get John. I want that guy to do it, Jamie Staub. So he's going to mix the record in. We post up in New York at Sony Studios, and I have basically the burden of the whole record on my shoulders. And you know what? It didn't feel like a burden. It felt like, much like Old Dirty Bastard, 36 chambers, trim 36 chambers. I knew I had lightning in the bottle, get that motherfucker to the finish line. And it's the same feeling. I was like, I'm gonna get this motherfucker to the finish line. And Jamie did a tremendous job mixing the record with me and John. We had a few hiccups. We had to fix the strings and recut them. We had this guy, Stephen Kulo, who helped us do it. He did a great job. We fixed everything. Those are the strings on What It's Like. And we drove it to the home stretch, man. I got the record done, and I talked to Eric about the skits and how to assemble it all. We had done the record thinking with the skits we did that the white boy is back.
The white boy is back, and you know he could never be whack. The white boy is back.
The Fat Boys Are Back thing, we did that in LA. I didn't like the vocal, I fixed it. I had little musical skits like Pete Rock style in between things. Those phone messages are all real.
Prince Paul, Sin Dog, and Guru.
Hey, yo, what up, Everlast? This is Prince Paul, man. Yo, I ran into Trev on the street from Nasty. He said he was doing this ill Celtic rock album.
Yo, Everlast, what's up? It's Sin Dog. How you doing, kid? Check this. I heard you was doing some shit with some live instruments and all that. Word, I'm doing the same thing. Hey, yo, check this out. You still rhyming or what? You need to get at me, dog. Peace out.
Hey, yo, Everlast. What up? This Big Guru from the Gang Star, you know what I'm saying? Just checking in on you, yo. I heard about your accident. I want to know if you're still breathing. So get at it, brother. You know how to reach me, kid. Word is born, man. I miss you. Hit me up. Peace.
And the Guru one I cannot listen to. It's too much for me. And me and Guru, I forgot to say this. So I don't want to say Guru's the only reason I ended up doing the record, but I'm in LA with Stott on the Wild Cowboys promo tour at the Mondrian, which is not the Mondrian of today. It was fucked up then. And Guru's staying there, and we end up with him at the bar, and he's like, yo, you know my man Everlast? I was like, yeah, that's my man. And he's like, yeah, he's coming through to meet me. So Everlast comes through, and we're hanging out, and Guru was like, y'all motherfuckers is the same dude. He's like, that's the LAU, man. Y'all motherfuckers, I've never seen two dudes the same. And he was like, you both crazy as shit, hard-ass white boys. You guys fucking need to fuck with each other. And we had already talked about it, but Guru put the battery in our back. And what I didn't know was Eric's a huge Sadat X fan, so he got Sadat to jump on that record, Heart Full of Sorrow.
If you want to sit down and actually write out a list of the MCs that miss, it would be the Constitution. They play their caps backwards, still saying whack words. No power to George, just a few yes men.
And he flew X out there. I was managing X, and it was good vibes. Me and Everlast went to the Super Bowl together that year because we had linked up, and we had like, we had the bromance going. We had known each other for like 10 years. I knew him from the Rhyme Syndicate, but we became peoples. So we were I was like my long lost brother. I was like, this is my guy.
Right.
So that was a lot of the reason we did the record. But rest in peace to Guru, man. He had a lot to do with that, and I forgot that kind of. So that was part of it too. So that's why he did the skit for us on the record, which is too difficult to listen to now. But I put all the skits where I thought they went, and I sequenced the songs into each other, and I got the flow of the record together, and I think I did a good job in telling a story with a lot of diverse parts.
Right.
So
that's not an easy thing to do to mix.
Nah,
those vibes.
but I had it in my head. Man, Mike, I had that motherfucker in my head. It's like you write a screenplay in your head. I had the shit written in my head. I knew where it all went. So I fit the parts in that weren't done yet. Send Dog, I set that up. But so we put all the pieces together and we turned the record in, and we had this, they called this big summit meeting at Tommy Boy. Oh, so first Eric told me I nailed it. He said, you fucking nailed it, D. And I was like, man, thank you. Like, I was like, you were over my shoulder the whole time. A crazy thing too is E Swift, here's a testament how cool that motherfucker is. He flew to New York to mix his own record. He's like, oh, how's it going? I was like, good. I said, can I mix your record? He said, man, I'll just come to New York. I said, yeah, Tommy Boy, man, they're cheap. They ain't paying for it. He's like, fuck that. I got some things to do out there anyway. So I'm just come through. And E Swift just came through and mixed that shit.
That's awesome.
And me and him hung out for a couple of days. Yeah, E Swift, man, shout out to that brother. He's the best. Other thing is, E Swift and J-Ro kept calling me when Eric had the heart attack, and they lived up the block. And I wasn't returning their call. The motherfuckers showed up at the house. They just showed up. But I was ducking and diving people, man. It was too much. So fast forward back to New York. we turned the record in, and we had this meeting at Tommy Boy. Me and Carl Stubner walk in, and this cat named Sam Crespo, who works at Atlantic, he said, yo, I'm just going to let you know this record's fucking incredible, but I don't know what the fuck they're going to do with this. And I was like, okay. And basically that's what this guy named Martin Davies and Tom Silverman said. They said, this record is great. It's going to be a critical success. We do not know how to sell records like this. This is not what we do, but we're going to give it a shot. So that doesn't instill a lot of confidence.
It does not. It does not. It's like giving them permission to fumble the bag.
We walked out going, God damn it. So we delivered the news to Eric, and we forge on. Eric starts putting a band together with Keefus, me and John help. I forgot this too. I had gave a copy to it to Steve Rifkin, because Rifkin was talking about me going to work there. I said, Steve, man, I'm not really in hip hop headspace, but I did this record, and he was like, this shit is fucking great. Tommy Boy's gonna fuck it up. So the record came out the first week and sold 4,300 copies, but it did get really good. It was a sleeper. It got great reviews.
Okay.
Amazing critical response.
So y'all hadn't dropped. I mean, did y'all do what it's like? It
First.
Okay.
First and foremost.
But that seemed like
That's
such a
the
big
first
single, so it didn't sell well the first week.
It didn't cook for 6 months. I'll tell you what happened. So we sold 4,300 albums, not 43,000.
Right.
4,300 in the days of SoundScan. And we're dead in the water, man. I figured we're dead in the water. To Tommy Boy's credit, they hung in there with that motherfucker.
It worked.
Eric puts his band together. My old publicist from Elektra, ironically, Beth Jacobson, is working the record, and she loves me and I love her, and she goes hard for my record. This critic named John Leland, do you know who that is?
No.
He wrote for Spin. He was the editor-in-chief. He championed the record. He loved the record. So this guy named Charles Aaron. They both loved the record and championed the record. So I have these guys at Spin, the most important kind of, alternative magazine in the world, they're the pitchfork of the day, and they're writing about this thing. MTV catches wind of it a little bit. A guy named Fred Jordan, rest in peace. He was the guy who they played records for at MTV. He was the guy who okayed music up there, rap music and all kinds of shit. He was my man. So Fred loved the record, and Fred called me up and he said, Dante, yo, this Everlast shit is crazy. I told him to add this shit. So it's gonna go on 120 minutes, but I told him to put in rotation. They're gonna test it. But this shit is dope. And he was like, the whole album is dope. So Fred Jordan, I was like, wow. He had a lot of pull at that point. And he was a really nice guy. He used to come to my summer house and all that. I remember sending him a platinum record. I was really happy to be able to do that. So look, man, Tommy Boy hung in there with the record. I got the band together. We do our first show in New York, and we rehearsed the shit out of them. And they sounded fucking good. And we do the first show in New York at this club called Stony Island High on St. Mark's Place that I used to hang out at. That was like the cool, alt rock spot in New York. And yo, this motherfucker's put it down. He slayed that shit. He put it down. Next day, the Daily News, huge write-up. New York Times, John Leland. No, was it Leland or Perellis? I want to say John Perellis championed it in the New York Times. It is, they say it's talking about rock rap, and they're saying how he, like Beck, stands out from the crowd, that he's making something that's uncategorizable and all this fucking shit. And, man, people are telling me the record's great, and MTV starts to look at it a little bit. It goes on 120 minutes, and the station in Seattle called The End. They're like K-Rock's twin in Seattle. They're probably the most forward-thinking, progressive, modern rock station in the country. They started playing the record, and it reacts. It goes. So K-Rock jumps on it, and it goes.
So there it is.
So we have a radio record, but it took 6 months from the record to come out, which comes out in the fall. It came out early fall. It was a hit by Christmas time. I remember we went top 10, sold 74,000 copies the week before Christmas, and I was at a Christmas party, and an A&R guy came up to me, a guy I don't really like, who had kind of jerked me around on the deal. I'll leave him nameless. He was like, he's like, congratulations, you have a hit record. And he had a hat on, and I took that thing and threw it across the room and said, go fuck yourself. But he was right. I had a hit record. And the record kept going, man. And it became a hit record. Like he got the Lenny Kravitz tour because Lenny Kravitz like walked up to him at a party and was like, "Hey, I love your record. You want to go on tour?"
Wow.
And Eric was like, "Fuck yeah." It was like one of those kind of things where it became every artist's favorite record too. And it changed the course of both of our lives, and musically and economically and philosophically. There was a deep, there was a lot of mojo. It's not called Whitey Ford Sings the Blues for nothing, and he gave it that title before all this shit happened, and it was his game. It was his play on Raleigh Fingers and all the baseball names that the Wu-Tang guys had. So it was like, oh yeah, you're Raleigh Fingers. I'm going to be Whitey Ford because, he's an Irish guy. He played for the Yankees. I love the Yankees. Eric's a Yankee fan, even though he's from L.A. And so, that's what we ran with, Whitey Ford Sings the Blues, which was kind of a non sequitur of a title. But he got to inhabit this character, Whitey Ford, and be a person that allowed him to detach from House of Pain and Everlast, which was brilliant when I think about it, though I didn't know it at the time. And somehow all of this shit connected. Look, the moon and the stars were in our corner. We had nothing to lose and everything to gain. And we threw caution in the wind and we nailed it. And to me, still the best record I ever made because it was the one that took me outside of what I knew I could do and allowed me to take all the stuff that I grew up influenced by and throw it in one big pot and stew it up and fucking have it connect. And it made me know that I wasn't crazy, that there was an audience that, like me, pre-internet, had a foot in a lot of different cultures and could speak lots of different musical languages. And if you listen to that record, man, it may not be obvious, but everything from Otis Redding to Rage Against the Machine is in that motherfucker, and everything in between, including Fiona Apple and the Beastie Boys and Massive Attack and Wu-Tang Clan and Big Daddy Kane and the Beatles and all that other shit I love that most people might not decipher is all in that bitch.
Well, we're going to leave it right there for now. But that's beautiful. It's great to hear about how real life and community and like personal change and growth for you and Everlast seems to be like baked into the project. Like it really does put it in a whole nother light. And it makes the success like even more inspiring in that way.
It's always great to be successful with people you love, right? Because I've been successful with people I didn't care for, and it wasn't really that fun. It didn't mean shit to me. That one meant so much. And, like when I go full circle on it, look, man, John Gamble's dead. He saved Eric's life by calling the ambulance that night, right? My brother died, and Eric would have died if John hadn't been there and done that. And that's never lost on me. And I have to say, like, I always got all the props for that record. I co-wrote some of it. And look, man, I was definitely, me and Eric were the visionaries, and I saw how to steer that ship. But I could not have made that record without John Gamble. He was my co-pilot. He helped. Look, I was the guy, like, I had the equation. I knew the answer, but I didn't know the mathematical question to get there. He saw the equation to get me to my answer, and that's invaluable. So even when I look back at that now, with John having passed, it takes a whole nother meaning to it all. It makes it all the more important. And look, man, that record is the record to me as a producer, the high point of my career. And I made it with two of my favorite people in the whole world. And we got to reap the benefits. It was a very, very, in that 1 year, I probably grew more than I had in the previous 5 to 10 before it. And Eric as well. And through tragedy comes great growth on his behalf. But you know what's funny, man? I knew he was going to live. I can't explain it other than that. When all that shit happened, I was like, oh, I'm going to go finish the record. We're going to have a hit record. Like, I knew it. I can't even bullshit. I had so much confidence, and everything that got thrown in front of me before the record was a hit, I just brushed that shit off. Like, fuck all y'all. Shit's going to work out. And it worked out.
Well, we're gonna sit and explore what them benefits and rewards look like. I'm really curious to see how it changed. But we're gonna leave it here for now. I mean, that's just an amazing, inspiring story. I didn't know all that backstory about the album, so it's like really putting it.
I'm writing a screenplay about it now.
There we go. We go.
I feel like I need to write it because it's a story about like two people who are lost who found each other and we were lost at sea and we found land together and reaped the benefits. And it was all built on just, a deep friendship. So.
Word up. It's a beautiful thing.
Thanks for watching that, and if you dug that, leave a thumbs up and say what up in the comments, and make sure to subscribe to Stony Island Audio for more.